It's 2026. You're in a stadium in Dallas watching a World Cup match. A player just sat down on the pitch. Not injured, just done. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. Your body doesn't have a temperature limit. It has a humidity limit. There's a line, the wet bulb temperature, where your sweat stops evaporating and your own metabolism starts cooking you from the inside. You could be sitting still, in the shade, drinking water, and still lose. So why does the one system built to keep you cool just quit? And why is the number that breaks it lower than you'd ever guess? Let's start with the part that isn't weird. Your body cools itself by sweating. That's it. That's the whole system. You've got somewhere between 2 and 4 million sweat glands, and they all do one job. You dump water onto your skin, and when that water evaporates, it carries heat away with it. Not the sweating, the drying. The wet part on your forehead does nothing. The disappearing part does everything. So when people say it's not the heat, it's the humidity, they're not just complaining, they're describing the exact moment your cooling system fails. But the real story is weirder than a muggy afternoon. Here's what's actually happening on your skin right now. You can push out somewhere between 1 and 1.5 liters of sweat an hour when you're working hard. That's a full water bottle. Gone every hour just to hold you at 37 degrees Celsius. And it's not the volume that saves you, it's physics. Turning 1 gram of liquid sweat into vapor pulls roughly 580 calories of heat off your body. Every drop that dries is a tiny heat pump you didn't ask for and can't switch off. You're basically a leaking radiator with a pulse. And here's where it gets stupid. That whole system only works if the air will take the water. Dry air is thirsty. It yanks the sweat right off you, but air near 100% humidity is already full. It's holding all the water it can carry, so your sweat just sits there, pooling, doing nothing. You're still dripping, still losing fluid, still feeling like you're cooling down. You're not, you're just wet. The gauge in your head says handling it. Your core temperature disagrees, and your core doesn't have a lot of room to argue. It likes to sit right around 37 degrees Celsius, and it starts to fail somewhere past 40 degrees Celsius. That's a swing of about 3 degrees between fine and in trouble, which is why a normal thermometer lies to you. It reads the air temperature and shrugs. 40 degrees Celsius in Phoenix, bone dry, and you're annoyed but fine, because your sweat is evaporating like crazy. So scientists use a second number, the wet bulb temperature. Wrap a thermometer bulb in a wet sock, blow air across it, and read it. That's the coldest anything can get by evaporation alone. That's the coldest you can get. Your skin is the wet sock. And there's a line on that second number where the whole thing collapses. Once the wet bulb temperature climbs high enough, your sweat can't evaporate at all. 0. The heat your own body makes just sitting there, running your brain, your heart, your slow Sunday breathing, stumblebs, has nowhere to go. So it stays. Your core temperature starts climbing. In the shade, hydrated, doing nothing wrong. The textbook number for that line was 35 degrees Celsius wet bulb, except that number was never actually tested on people. It was a calculation, a tidy line on a chalkboard. So in 2022, a team at Penn State, Vecellio and Kenney, published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, did the obvious thing nobody had bothered to do. They put young, healthy adults in a heat chamber, gave them small heat loads, and slowly cranked the conditions until each person's core temperature started to run away. And the real line wasn't 35. It was closer to 31 degrees Celsius wet bulb, sometimes lower depending on whether the heat was humid or dry. Nobody in that chamber was old or sick, or out on a hot roof for 8 hours. These were the people who should have coped best, and the wall showed up 4 degrees early. Sit with that for a second. For decades, the safety margin printed in the textbooks was set about 4 degrees too generous, and 31 isn't a number on some other planet. That's a July afternoon in a lot of places you can drive to. The people in that chamber were the best case, young, fit, healthy, resting. That's the gold standard human. That's the version of you that copes best, and it still lost the plot around 31. And it gets one notch stupider. The limit isn't even a single number. In hot, dry heat, you hit a wall from the other side. You sweat so fast, you drain faster than you can drink. And even soaked, your skin can't push its own temperature much below 35 degrees Celsius. Humid or dry, there's a version of the trap waiting for you. Your body only has the one trick. Wet the skin, wait for it to dry. When the air says no, you're out of tricks. There's no backup radiator. There's no manual override. Which brings us back to that stadium. World Cup 2026 runs across the US and Mexico through the summer. Dallas, Monterrey, cities that flirt with these numbers in June and July. Now picture a player, sprinting. Their working muscles are dumping out heat like a small engine, way past your resting Sunday output. They're pouring sweat. And if the air won't accept it, all that heat has one place left to go: inward, into the core. That player who sat down wasn't weak. Their cooling system just got handed a physics problem with no answer. And you're running the same hardware. Even sitting still, you throw off about 100 watts of heat, a dim light bulb that never switches off. Not on a pitch, on the walk to your car, across a parking lot in August, carrying groceries. Same one trick, same one line. The difference between rough afternoon and your body can't shed its own heat is a couple of degrees on a number your weather app doesn't even show you. You've trusted that thermometer your whole life. It was only ever telling you half the story. So here's the part that should bug you. You are right now a warm engine that only knows one way to cool down: get wet and hope the air is thirsty. That's the entire design. One method, no fallback, and a shutoff point lower than the science admitted until 4 years ago. Every one of us is walking around trusting a cooling system that quietly gives up the second the air fills up. And most of us have no clue the line sits that close. Your body doesn't cook itself because it's broken.